CSIR IMMT Dr. Ramanush Narayan to offer our floral greetings to the and kindling the flame of enlightenment.
आचार्य CSIR के उपाध्यक्ष वो भारत के विज्ञान प्रौद्योगिकी और पृथ्वी विज्ञान मंत्री परम आदरणीय डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह जी, चिकित्सकगण, कलकत्ता से आए हुए निदेशकगण, CSIR के सभी निदेशकगण और कोहोर्ट के पूरी टीम जो भारत की यहाँ पर मौजूद है, और CSIR IGIB का नेतृत्व हो और CSIR IMMT का साथ हो और उसके साथ CSIR बायरैक ILS का साथ हो तो हम कुछ भी कर सकते हैं, पत्थर में भी फूल खिला सकते हैं। और उसके लिए देश के विभिन्न भागों से हमारे परम आदरणीय चिकित्सक लोग जो कि देश के हेल्थ को प्रदान कर रहे हैं। मानवर आपके ही दिशा निर्देश और आपके ही सजेशन से हमने इस कार्यक्रम का आयोजन, जो खुद एक प्रख्यात मधुमेह चिकित्सक हों, इंडियन कार्डियोलॉजी के प्रोफेसर हों, और ये आज हमारा पूर्वाहन है कि कल विश्व मधुमेह दिवस मनाया जा रहा है, तो उसके पूर्वाहन पर आपके जो महत्ता पर मैं आपको संस्थान की तरफ से, पूरे ऑर्गेनाइजिंग टीम की तरफ से, CSIR की तरफ से हार्दिक अभिनंदन करता हूँ। आपकी शख्सियत जहाँ में आप हमारी प्रेरणा का कारण है, इस विज्ञान में सभा में सर आंखों पर बिठाते हैं। हम आपका हर आदेश, आपकी इनायत से बढ़ता है हमारा ज्ञान। और मैं विशेष रूप से देश के विभिन्न भाग से जितने हमारे चिकित्सक आए हैं उनका हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूँ। और
the objective of this today's conference is that to collect all the cohort clinicians as well as researchers into the same network and exchange our knowledge as well as expertise, so that our study become more strong. And as we know that Prime Minister has a dream of Dixit Bharat 2047. So time has gone to work as silos. It is the time to come together and solve a problem. So this is the dream we are trying to fulfill. With this, I again thank to
event for CSIR. We have started this around 2 years ago, but it was in works for a while. We are talking about actually collecting samples from 10,000 CSIR employees, and this involves, originally our vision was to look at all the health parameters and a part of it for microbiome. But later on the numbers were increased to 6,000 participants for the microbiome, and some of the findings, we have already done 2 rounds of it across India, multi-institutional. IGIB is leading the project, but CCMB is also a major part of it, and NCL, IMMT, all these people, all the 38 labs of CSIR are involved in putting our, in making sure that these cohorts are actually successfully collected. All the samples have been collected for 2 rounds, 2 years. And there are some interesting obvious findings, like I believe the parameters that we have in India are going to be distinct and different from what is already known for the rest of the world population. So this is something we do not have, and that knowledge is something that we will gain. And we also have a scenario where our microbiome pattern seems to be, which is not very unexpected, directly related to the kind of diet we have, is distinct from the Western population. So some of these
Thank you, sir. Today, we are signing 2 new MOUs to foster academia-industry R&D partnerships further in the gracious presence of our Honorable Let these MOUs
cure of the metabolic disorders. And thanks also, Dr. Ramaraj, for your very poetic introduction. और जब ये कह रहे थे कि आपको देखकर सब चेहरों पर गुलजार है, तो सब हंस पड़े. But being a scientist, I can't deceive myself. जो सब हंसे, वो उनके शेर पर हंसे, हमारे चेहरे पर हंसे. So all of us are researchers. We have learned not to believe anything without evidence. So if you see the economy order, the evidence of the laughter was the poetry, not the face that he was describing. But nevertheless, it is very flattering, and always, like always, Dr. Ramaraj has been always one of our very active colleagues. Now coming back to what you were saying, I think this CSIR-led Phenom India conclave and the cohort study that they have undertaken is actually meant to study 4 basic determinants, which are also very important determinants, namely the biological factors, the environmental factors, the genetic factors, and of course the lifestyle. And it is not easy to decode these factors in the context of the Indian population, given all this heterogeneity, diversity, both in the terms of lifestyle, the eating habits, even the environment, and even our genetic makeup is different. Like for example, the disease that I deal with for many years, till at least about 1980s, type 2 diabetic mellitus was known to be a disorder of South India more than North India. And now, of course, there's a democratization of disease because of the breakdown of all that divide. So it's all over. But I remember we did some case reports of 1 or 2 newly detected diabetes about 35 years back from Kashmir Valley, a bureaucrat who had never heard of diabetes. So he could not even make out his symptoms. He just asked his attendant to replace his glass of water every time he felt thirsty, and he said that I need a lot of water, so don't wait for me to place an order. Just when you find the tumbler empty, just replace it. Before somebody told you that you should get insulin. So much was the ignorance about this disorder. And so also the metabolic disorders in the whole, because they all come in a cluster sometimes. We have a whole spectrum of, and that's the reason also why we even in CSIR and the modern biotechnology, we are beset with a very huge task which is occupying most of our attention, of developing new vaccines even for disorders like dengue, malaria, tuberculosis, because we have actually not yet got over that. So we still have that, or we have revived that. At the same time, we have all these metabolic disorders. And ironically, as many of us who are dealing with this would bear me out, that there is also a certain amount of reciprocal relationship between the communicable and the non-communicable disease, which is not often talked about, either in the scientific conferences or even by the policymakers. They treat the 2 sets of these diseases as a separate. So they have a separate program. I was actually even discussing with the health ministry. They treat NCDs as a separate entity and the CDs as a separate entity without realizing that they have somewhere common granduncles and grandparents. Like for example, tuberculosis and diabetes have a reciprocal relationship. If it's an uncontrolled glycemic level, it will predispose you to tuberculosis. If you have tuberculosis, you are more prone to have all these diseases. So like biotechnology department are now, I think, most actively engaged in the government sector. We have now, even in the DBT, we have set up a sequence. We started sequencing of human genes. We already sequenced about 10,000 individuals. We hope to have 1 million very soon. We also have the first ever trial on hemophilia successfully done by developing factor VIII. We conducted the clinical trial in CMC below. So now the other point is that as we learn, go on in this journey, the management strategies also keep on evolving. Like for example, even when we talk of the communicable disease, there were times we didn't have antibiotics before 1950 or so, because the first antibiotic came in 1947 or 48 in penicillin. So they would treat, they had that sanitoria concept. I think the biggest sanatorium in the world was the one in Chennai, the Tamram Sanatorium. So you would place the patient there in isolation. and then gradually you have. So we kept on evolving as we had more and more tools at our armament. Similarly, in case of diabetes till 1921, they just made the patient starve painfully, because that was the understanding. They thought the more he ate, the more he would be having blood glucose levels. So finally many patients died because the insulin came only in 1921. And that is the day that we commemorate on November 14. And then you kept on giving injections. We had short-acting insulin. You had to give 3 multiple injections. Gradually, then we came into intermediate and long term. Finally, the mantra that I have always been trying to speak about, the Indian treatment for Indian patients, Indian prevention strategy for Indian subjects, and Indian data for Indian solutions. And for that, I think a study like this is imperative. This will be providing us a huge amount of data for our future strategies as far as our prophylactic, preventive or therapeutic initiatives are concerned. And then integrating it with the private sector to make it more viable, sustainable, and must complement the directors over here for facilitating these MOUs and the venture capitalists. So, in the end, I would only say that, Hippocrates always used to say that even when a doctor has no tool or no instrument or no medicine at his disposal, he can still be of some help to this society. Like, for example, if you're sitting in a railway compartment and somebody says that he's sneezing or having a headache, even if you don't have a tablet to offer, you can offer some advice in some way. If not, at least a placebo effect. So, from that extent, I think when we talk of Viksit Bharat 2047, the health of India is going to be the basic parameter. So, in a single sentence, you can say India's health at 2047 will be the key to Viksit Bharat. Thank you.
For gracing us with his presence today. Sir, your presence added immense value to this conference.
Who, despite having such a busy schedule, took out time to come to Bhubaneswar and give his wisdom to us for inaugurating the National Conclave of Longitudinal Cohort Studies, Cohort Connect. My heartfelt thanks to DG CSR for silently supporting this activity. Also, I thank Dr. Ramanuj Narayan, Dr. Saubik Maiti, Dr. Vinay Nandipuri, all the current and future leaders in the scientific field, CSIR, DBT, the science enthusiasts of the country.
तो हमारे बॉडी में एंटीक्लाइमेटिक इफेक्ट होता है बट उसका भी एक लिमिट है आफ्टर दैट पर्टिकुलर थ्रेशोल्ड दे फॉर्म molecules called AGE, advanced glycated alcohols. आगे थोड़ा आगे आ जाए.
ଆମେ କାନାଡ଼ା ବନେଇକି ପୋଷ୍ଟର ଲାଇନ୍ ପୋଷ୍ଟର ବନେଇବୁ ଲାଇନ୍ ଦେଖ ସାର୍ ଭଲ ଅଛନ୍ତି